Hello, this is Patrice, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the June 2nd issue of the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. After an agonizing week of threats, Kiev is finally bombarded by Russia. Moscow's repeated warnings of a major strike, combined with the delay before it happened, seemed intended to inflict a psychological toll on the Ukrainian capital. This article is by Maria Varenikova and Kim Barker. More than a week after Russia warned of an attack on Kiev that would be so big that diplomats and other foreigners should flee, Moscow finally struck early on Tuesday. Its forces launched hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles at the capital and other cities in Ukraine, killing at least 16 people, the Ukrainian authorities said. The bombardment of Kiev was similar in scale to two other deadly attacks last month. Moscow has continued its air campaign against the capital, even as the Russian military has suffered its worst period in years on the front line, measured in territory gained. What appeared to be different about the latest assault on Kiev was the psychological element. Last month, Russia's foreign ministry issued dire warnings of retaliation for what Russian officials said was a Ukrainian drone attack that struck a college dormitory in the Russian-controlled Luhansk region of eastern Ukraine, killing 21 students. The toll could not be independently verified. After Russia threatened another huge strike on Kiev, including on decision-making centers, and told foreigners to evacuate, Western envoys rallied around the Ukrainian government, saying they would stay put and not give in to intimidation tactics. Still, Moscow's warnings and the long amount of time that passed before Russia actually struck took a toll on residents of Kiev. For days, Russia launched planes in a manner that imitated a large attack, setting off alarms and wearing people down. Many families ended up sleeping in Kiev subways and in parking lots for multiple nights. By Tuesday morning, as the first Russian drones crossed the border into Ukraine, shelters were full, a sight less common than it was early in the year, with people having gotten used to the threat of Russian strikes. Those who arrived in the middle of the night after the first missile warning struggled to find a space to lie down. Subway station floors were covered in tents and yoga mats, dogs were barking, children were crying, struggling to fall asleep. After the alert was lifted, sleepy families walked home as the sun cut through thick clouds of smoke over Kiev. But shortly after 7 a.m., with some people already on their way to work, Russia hit the city with hypersonic ballistic missiles, Ukrainian officials said, leaving little time for people to seek shelter again. After the dozens of explosions that shook Kiev overnight, several sites were still on fire on Tuesday morning. At least 5 people were killed and 3 children were among the 65 injured, said Mayor Vitaly Klitschko. Him. A 9-story apartment building in the Podilsky district west of the Dnipro River partly collapsed, he said. In the city of Dnipro in central Ukraine, 11 people were killed, including 2 children, and 37 injured as a result of an overnight attack, according to the local authorities. Overall, Russia launched 656 drones and 73 missiles in the overnight wave of strikes, according to Ukraine's Air Force, which reported that 33 missiles had hit their targets. It was perhaps the most advertised attack of the war. Russia warned on May 25th of its plan to strike decision-making centers in Kiev. On Monday, President Vladimir V. Putin chaired a meeting in the Kremlin about the Ukrainian drone strike on the college dormitory in Luhansk, saying that the attack had added a new quality to the conflict as a whole. Ukraine's government has described the Russian assertions about the strike as misinformation, but a Ukrainian news outlet identified civilian victims, including students. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement on Tuesday that the overnight attacks were a response to what it called terrorist acts on targets in Russia. Mikhailo Salmus, the director of the independent New Geopolitics Research Network in Kiev, said one of the most important aspects of this wave of Russian threats and attacks was the cognitive component. That, he added, involves changing Ukrainian psychological state and forcing them to take to the streets and demand an end to the war. Increasing the scale of attacks while simultaneously emphasizing the cognitive component is what Russia is likely to continue doing, Mr. Samas said. Russia has been bombarding Kiev and other cities for years, since long before Ukraine developed the capability to strike back, but in recent months it has ratcheted up its attacks. Every major assault on Ukrainian cities seems to achieve a record of one kind or another: the most drones used, the most ballistic missiles fired. On May 14th, Russia launched more than 1,400 drones at Ukrainian cities over 24 hours, the largest drone attack of the war, according to a data set created by the New York Times using the numbers drawn from the Ukrainian Air Force. A single ballistic missile fired as part of that bombardment killed 24 people in Kiev. On Tuesday, Russia fired a record number of the nuclear-capable hypersonic cruise missiles known as Zircons. It launched 4 overnight and the same number later in the morning. Analysis said the Russian attacks were aimed in part at depleting Ukraine's limited stocks of Patriot interceptor missiles, its only proven defense against Russian ballistic missiles. This story does continue on. To hear it read in its entirety, please call 716-821-5555. Trump administration live updates. President names Bill Pulte as an acting director of national intelligence. This is an article by Matthew Goldstein. Pulte's, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, it's Pulte, so I'm going to call it Pulte. Pulte's appointment as acting director of national intelligence throws a new wrinkle into his plans for an initial public offering for shares of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two giant mortgage finance firms that have been under federal government control since the financial crisis. One of the first things Pulte did after being sworn in as the director of Federal Housing Finance Agency was to appoint himself as chair of the boards of both companies. He then began talking up the prospect of the government selling some of its remaining equity stake in both Fannie and Freddie. Plans for an IPO have not moved forward much in recent months. Housing official who attacked Democrats invokes a disputed family legacy. The Trump nominee, Bill Pulte, has called out a Fed governor and New York's attorney general for issues with their mortgage documents. Some leaders of the family's home building business bristle at how he's enhanced his reputation. This is an article by Matthew Goldstein, Jessica Silver Greenberg, and Kaylin Roan. When Bill Pulte appeared before the Senate committee considering his nomination to be one of the nation's top housing regulators, he presented himself as the anointed representative of his family's home building empire. Mr. Pulte recounted visiting job sites with his grandfather, William J. Pulte, who founded the Pulte Group, the nation's third largest residential builder. He expressed gratitude to senators from Georgia, Nevada, Minnesota, and Arizona on behalf of his family. You know, my family's legacy company is based in Georgia, he told Senator Raphael Warnock, a Georgia Democrat, at the hearing in late February. Atlanta has been very good to our family. But Mr. Pulte, 37, no longer has any official connection to Pulte Group, which has built 800,000 homes across the country since the 1950s. He was pushed off the company's board in 2020 after being elected to a seat several times since 2016, and his family's $500 million charitable foundation, run by an aunt and his father, issued a statement 2 years ago saying that Bill Pulte does not represent, nor is he a spokesperson for, all the members of the Pulte family in any capacity. These days, one of Bill Pulte's primary connections to the residential real estate business is a group of 5 aging mobile home parks he owns in Florida, some badly in need of repair. His mobile home park investments were not readily apparent on his financial disclosure form because he listed parent companies but not the subsidiaries used to buy the properties in 2023 and 2024. 2 of the trailer parks in Palm Beach County are only hours from a site where the Pulte Family Charitable Foundation is spearheading the construction of 179 rental homes for people who live below the poverty line, often in overcrowded trailers, according to the foundation's website. In a statement, a spokesperson for Mr. Pulte said he owned passive shares in the mobile homes and had no oversight or management in any of these companies. The spokesman said the mobile homes represent a very small part of his net worth. As President Trump's choice to direct the Federal Housing Finance Agency, Mr. Pulte oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the giant mortgage finance firms that control much of the nation's mortgage market. But he has made his mark by publicizing personal mortgage agreements of some of Mr. Trump's enemies and calling out what he claims are misrepresentations in the documents. He has accused Lisa D. Cook, a member of the Federal Reserve Board, of listing two of her homes as primary residences on mortgage applications and accused New York's Attorney General Letitia James of renting out a home that she told her mortgage provider she would use as a secondary residence. Last month, federal prosecutors charged Ms. James with bank fraud after a criminal referral by Mr. Pulte. She has pleaded not guilty. Citing Mr. Pulte's allegations, Mr. Trump has tried to remove Ms. Cook from her position at the Fed. Ms. Cook has sued the president in response and remains at the Fed. Mr. Pulte's limited disclosure about his mobile homes most likely met the broad federal reporting standards required of top federal officials, but it also fits his pattern of carefully choosing the facts to enhance his reputation and associate himself with the Pulte names in ways that have frustrated Pulte Group executives and some of his relatives. In interviews, two members of the family said Mr. Pulte had created confusion in news releases and social media posts by attributing his own pronouncements to the Pulte family. He congratulated Elon Musk for buying Twitter. He announced his stake in Grab a Gun, an online gun retailer where Donald Trump Jr. is board member. He assailed the chief executive at Pulte Group for selling shares and for management problems in 2023, all on behalf of the Pulte family. Once again, this is actually a very long article. So to hear the entire article again, please call 716-821-5555. Hospitals see diseases resurge as vaccinations decline. Doctors nationwide are encountering more children with whooping cough, bacterial infections, and other serious illnesses, as well as more adults refusing tetanus shots. This is an article by Maggie Astor and Danny Bloom. Doctors around the country say they're seeing more cases of serious, sometimes life-threatening illnesses that vaccines have long kept at bay, including whooping cough and bacterial infections that cause pneumonia or meningitis. The concern among doctors comes on the heels of a resurgence of measles nationwide, fueled by a distrust in vaccines that grew during COVID-19 pandemic and that Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and President Trump have amplified. Public health experts have long seen measles as a harbinger. Because it is so exceptionally contagious, it can be the first disease to spike as vaccination rates broadly decline and a sign of more to come. For some of these diseases, national data show clear and substantial increases in recent years. For others, the increases are small, or there are anecdotal indications from doctors on the ground of increases that public statistics don't currently confirm. While most children recover, these diseases aren't benign. Many children endure extended hospitalizations. Some infections can be fatal. Dr. Megan Hoftu, a pediatric hospitalist at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, is one of the doctors who said she is seeing more illnesses that she used to encounter only rarely. This year, she and her colleagues have treated more children than usual with persistent diarrhea. A child with the run-of-the-mill stomach virus might need a day or so of IV fluids, but these patients were being hospitalized for 3 or 4 days. The culprit, rotavirus, which once caused tens of thousands of hospitalizations a year in the United States, but was largely swept away by vaccines introduced 20 years ago. These vaccines were so effective that Dr. Hoftu could recall treating only 4 or 5 children with rotavirus in the past decade. Now, she said, she had treated about that many already this year, and none of them were vaccinated. Dr. Jessica Kirk, a pediatric hospitalist in Fairhope, Alabama, recently treated an unvaccinated toddler who was hospitalized with pneumonia from 2 simultaneous infections, Haemophilus influenza and Streptococcus pneumonia. Routine childhood vaccines can protect against both S. pneumonia and a common form of H. influenza, but vaccinations against both illnesses have declined in recent years. The child that Dr. Kirk treated for both infections needed antibiotics and oxygen to get through the illness. Some of these conditions can lead to serious complications. H. influenza and S. pneumonia infections can cause sepsis, meningitis, and pneumonia. Dr. Hoftu said she had treated 4 to 6 week old infants with whooping cough or pertussis who seemed fine at times but then stopped breathing after a coughing fit. It's hard to know when they're safe to go home, she said. Many children with whooping cough don't have anti-vaccine parents, she said. They are just too young to have been vaccinated yet, and the disease has been circulating in more in recent years as overall vaccinations have declined. There were more than 28,000 cases reported last year compared to with 7,000 in 2023. Andrew Nixon, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services, said in an emailed statement, "We reject the premise that providing Americans with transparent information about the benefits and risks of medical products undermines public health." Even when the worst doesn't happen, emergency room doctors are having to subject some unvaccinated children with high fevers to more invasive testing, including spinal taps, to rule out life-threatening infections that vaccinated children are protected from. Infections like H. influenza and S. pneumonia can be hard to recognize because they can resemble less serious illnesses before rapidly leading to complications. And because near universal vaccination prevented them for so long, many doctors have little experience diagnosing them. The alternative to invasive testing in some cases is to start unvaccinated children on stronger antibiotics that doctors might otherwise use, which can have more side effects, said Dr. Robin Harrison and Dr. Tyler Rosenblum, pediatric hospitalists in Miami. Again, these articles are all very long today, so the number to call to hear the rest of it, 716-821-5555. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Will Schumer allies get a win in Iowa? What to watch in today's midterm primaries? Democrats have a competitive Senate primary race in Iowa, where the party is hoping to make gains, while the smoke jumper is running in a contested House primary in Montana. This article is by Reed J. Epstein. Iowa will hold closely watched primary elections on Tuesday in the state's competitive open seat primary races for Senate and governor. Both contests are to replace retiring Republicans, Senator Joni Ernst and Governor Kim Reynolds, and Democrats see each race as a top pickup opportunity in a state where President Trump's tariff policies have hampered the farm economy. The Senate race has received the bulk of the state's attention, with Democrats engaged in an expensive primary that has emerged as a test of the influence of the political machine loyal to Senator Chuck Schumer, the minority leader. Republicans have also have their own bitter primary for governor, though a late endorsement from Mr. Trump on Friday may have put an end to the drama. Elsewhere, Montana Democrats will choose between their most recent nominee for governor and a smoke jumper endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a battleground seat primary. A former Biden cabinet secretary is running for governor of New Mexico, and New Jersey Democrats will choose nominees in 2 House districts. Here are the races to watch, non-California edition. Do Iowa Democrats move to the middle or swing left? 2 Iowa state legislators with very different views on how to win in November are facing off for the Democratic nomination for Senate. Josh Turek, a Paralympian from the conservative Western Iowa, is pointing to his victories in a state House district that President Trump won as evidence that he can win over voters in his state Mr. Trump has carried decisively 3 times. His opponent, Zach Wahls, is a state senator from Johnson County, Iowa's most reliably Democratic place and home to the University of Iowa. Mr. Wahls is aiming to capitalize on anger of both Mr. Trump and Democratic establishment figures. Mr. Turek has the tacit, if not explicit, support of Mr. Schumer, Democrat of New York. Vote Vets, a Schumer-aligned Democratic veterans group, has spent $10 million, more than all the other Democratic candidates and outside groups combined, to lift Mr. Turek in the race. The winner is expected to face Representative Ashley Hinson, a Trump-backed Republican who is heavily favored in her primary in the general election. Can Steve King get his revenge on Randy Feenstra? 6 years ago, amid a torrent of scandals, Steve King, then a Republican congressman in Iowa, lost a primary to Randy Feenstra, who at the time was a conservative state senator. This year, Mr. Feenstra was the early establishment choice for governor, with key endorsements from Ms. Ernst and former Governor Terry Branstad, among others. But Mr. King, who never forgave Mr. Feenstra, is backing Zach Lahn, a first-time candidate and farmer who in recent weeks has overtaken Mr. Feenstra in fundraising and drawn TV attacks from Mr. Feenstra. Mr. Feenstra on Friday won a late endorsement from Mr. Trump, which, if recent patterns hold, appears likely to propel him to the nomination. But Mr. Lahn does not need to beat Mr. Feenstra to create a headache for Iowa Republicans who are set face Rob Sand, the well-funded Democratic state auditor, in the general election. If none of the 5 Republicans in the primary get more than 35% of the vote, the nomination would be decided at a June party convention, a nightmare scenario for the establishment-minded Mr. Feenstra. Again, it's a long article. There's a section on will a progressive push be successful in Western Montana? Can a former Biden cabinet secretary win in New Mexico? Which New Jersey Democrat will challenge the missing Thomas Keene? And that's it. So again, several more minutes, and the number to call, 716-821-5555, to hear the entire article. You've got to move with the times. 14 baby boomers on their generation and America today. This article is by, I'll see if I can find it. Anyways, I don't think it's what my parents went through, one participant in Times Opinion's latest focus group said of being in her 70s. Last month, Times Opinion spoke with 14 baby boomers about their generation, younger generations, and what has changed in their lifetimes economically, socially, and politically. In recent years, there has been a sharp discourse about how baby boomers have held on as a generation to power and money. The younger people think we're going to deplete everything, one participant said. But the biggest worry, as has been the case in many of our focus groups across different groups, was about long-term financial security. For people working, there was a feeling that employers don't want to hire people in their 60s and a concern that the math just wouldn't work out for them to retire anytime soon. And for the people who had retired, one worry reigned, not having saved enough to deal with the costs of living, illness, and potential full-time long care. As one participant put it, you don't know how much time you have left and you don't know what you have to spend. Some felt a few things had changed for the worse among younger people, that these generations expect things faster. But across the group, there was sympathy for how difficult the economy has been for those younger generations, how hard it is to buy a home, how insecure or temporary jobs are compared with those of previous generations, when some spent decades with a single company, and above all, how much social media and phones have changed interpersonal connection in their lifetimes. Oh, and here's the author, by Catherine Miller, Kristen Solstice Anderson, and Adrian J. Rivera. Transcript. What does it mean to be part of the baby boomer generation? Phil from Arizona is 67 and says it means being self-reliant, independent, proud of my generation, can do, and I'm still here. Rita, 65 from Tennessee, says it was a booming generation. That era was simple. Sometimes I wish I could go back in time to those days. People were kinder. I'm grateful to be a boomer. And Phil, 61 from Florida, said soldiers had come back from the war. They started their families and the country was doing well. You could have one person working, owning a house, and supporting a family. Another question. Do you think there are things that are unique about your generation, those who were born in that decade and a half after World War II, that make you different from the generations that came before or after? Mindy, 73, from Pennsylvania, says, "It was just a simpler time. You went to the store, they wrote things down, and you paid them at the end of the week. You were able to walk home from school without your parents worrying that someone was going to snatch you off the street. There was no social media, nobody following you around with a camera all the time. We used to joke around that my neighborhood was like Camelot. We found out later a lot of things went on that we didn't know about, but for the most part, I just think it was a simpler time." Jeff, 63, from Maryland, says, "I think you valued your friendships more. You had a different relationship back then. Everybody knew everybody. That was great because it helped foster a lot of better communication and actionable things that we would do as groups of friends and people. So yes, it was simpler, but we also grew up in a time of change. Think about the 60s. We had a lot of change in our country. I think we've lost a lot of that in a way because we need the physical connection. We need to be able to see people face to face." Shirley, 62, from New York, says, "It was the time of the civil rights movement for us. Yes, there was a camaraderie and an emphasis on the family, but there was also division. We had a long fight. We had to fight quite a bit to have certain rights. Yes, it did bring us together as a community, but some people saw that negatively." Margaret, 73, of New Jersey, said, "Everybody's going to hate me for saying this, but I don't feel like I am a baby boomer. Yes, I was a child during the 50s and 60s, but I might be different in the way that I embrace change. I embrace technology. I find that a lot of my friends who were born at the same exact time, they don't see things like that. They think that all of this technology and the changes that have happened with it are not a good thing. They don't want to be part of it. I do. I think I belong in the next generation because I really don't subscribe to the things that I did as a kid. Yeah, it was a great life, but it doesn't mean that I have to carry it with me for the rest of my life. You've got to move with the times. So I try to be more current as best as I can. Sometimes the achy bones and the aches and pains stop me from doing a lot, but that's how I feel. I'm skipping a little ahead in this article. A question was asked, compared with when you were young, is it about as hard, easier, or harder these days to buy a home? One person said about the same. Two people said easier, and one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 said it was that it's harder. Another question, in one or two words, how does it feel to be in your 60s or 70s? And the responses were more relaxed than anything else. There's more freedom. I think that I'm young, but my knees and ankles don't. Easier. I can focus now. Boring, but knowledgeable. Less tension in the old days than there is now. More freedom, more economic challenges. A couple more general questions that were asked of the group. Is it easier to get a job these days than it was when you were younger? Two people said it's about as hard to get a good job today as in the past. Two people say it's easier to get a good job these days, and the rest, the bulk of the group, about 10 people, say it was easier to get a good job in the past. Another question, is it regarding politics, is it good to have as much experience as possible, or is there an age where a politician should step back? Five people said as much experience as possible, and the rest, so seven, said there's an age where the politician should step back. Another question, do you think young adults will inherit a country better or worse off than the one your generation inherited? Three people say a better country, and the rest, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, the others say, about 12 people say a worse country. Okay, so there are a lot of other comments. Again, sorry if you want to hear the entire thing. 716-821-5555. And just a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Trump claims a missing New Jersey congressman has been working tirelessly. The message from President Trump about Representative Thomas Kean Jr. comes as voters head to the polls on Tuesday. Mr. Keaton's name is on the ballot, but he hasn't been seen for months. This article by Tracy Tully. The path to a House majority runs straight through swing districts like New Jersey's 7th, which stretches the width of the state and includes wealthy suburban towns and rural conservative bastions. Party control of the seat there was flipped back and forth twice in the last decade, making the November election by far the most competitive House race in New Jersey. 4 Democrats are competing in Tuesday's primary for the chance to run against the incumbent, Representative Tim Keene Jr., in the high-stakes midterm contest. But it is Mr. Keene, a Republican who has not been seen publicly in Washington or New Jersey for nearly 3 months, who has managed to overshadow the debate. On Monday night, even President Trump weighed in, claiming that Mr. Keene has been working tirelessly on behalf of his agenda. Tom Keene has my complete and total endorsement for re-election, the president wrote on social media, adding, he will never let you down. Mr. Keene, 57, has missed more than 100 floor votes since March while being treated for what his aides have described only as a personal medical condition. Here's what to know about the race for Mr. Keene's seat. 4 Democrats hope to unseat Mr. Keene. All the Democrats vying for their party's nomination, Rebecca Bennett, Michael Roth, Tina Shaw, and Brian Varela, have run robust and well-funded campaigns, even though none of them has held elected office before. All the candidates have said they would try to lower costs for New Jersey residents while taking on Ms. Bennett, a former U.S. Navy helicopter pilot and aircraft commander who has emphasized her experience as a mother and worker for healthcare companies. Mr. Roth ran an employee-owned consulting company and led the U.S. Small Business Administration during the Biden administration. Dr. Shaw is a physician who has worked as an advisor in the Office of the Surgeon General in the Department of Veterans Affairs. Mr. Varela runs a network of child care centers and has been outspoken about his goal of abolishing the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE. Where is Congressman Keene? Mr. Keene last voted in Congress on March 5th. Since then, his office has released just one statement from Mr. Keene in which he said he planned to be back to the job I love very soon. That was 36 days ago. His whereabouts have been shrouded in intrigue. Where is Congressman Keene? An editorial in The Leader, the local newspaper in Westfield, New Jersey, where Mr. Keene has lived for decades, asked on Thursday. His office has posted news releases on social media, often written in the first person, but aides have shared no recent photos or videos of Mr. Keene. When pressed on why Mr. Keene's chief of staff said, there's no cameras where Tom is. The congressman's investment portfolio has, however, remained active during his absence from Congress. Disclosure forms he is required to file indicate that he signed off electronically on several stock trades in April and May. A handful of Republican Party officials in the 6 counties that make up the 7th Congressional District reported receiving calls 2 weeks ago from Mr. Keene, who assured them that he has no plans to abandon his reelection campaign. He also spoke to the founder of a political news site by phone on May 21st, saying that he anticipated returning to Congress and to his campaign effort in the next couple of weeks. Mr. Keene, who has held the seat since 2023, is running unopposed on Tuesday. He cast a ballot by mail, his spokesperson said last week. Campaigning has drawn attention. An independent poll conducted during the race suggested that the number one issue for voters in Tuesday's Democratic primary was electing the candidate best positioned to oust Mr. Keene and help flip the House from red to blue. More than 1/4 of those surveys said they believe Ms. Bennett was that candidate. She has also led the field in fundraising since the start of the race. Republicans appear to have noticed too. A new political action committee with ties to Republicans is running negative ads that seek to undermine Ms. Bennett and elevate her more progressive opponents, who the poll showed were considered less likely to beat Mr. Keene in a head-to-head matchup. The PAC, Real Change, was formed last month in Nebraska and has so far spent about $650,000 to discredit Ms. Bennett. It's a strategy that is also paying out in other districts across the country as the parties vie for a competitive advantage in the race for control of the House. New Jersey's governor, Mike Sherrill, a Democrat, issued a statement in response to the ads that scolded Republicans. Stay out of Democratic primaries, she said. Ms. Bennett filed a cease and desist order against the PAC and responded with an ad of her own. MAGA is spending big, the ad states, spreading lies about Rebecca Bennett because they know that she's the only Democrat who can stop Donald Trump. Trump mega donor gave $5.5 million estate to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. nonprofit. A. Mellon Air transferred the adjacent Connecticut properties covering about 300 acres at no cost to Children's Health Defense last year. This article is by Rebecca Davis O'Brien and Theodore Schlafer. Timothy Mellon, a reclusive banking heir who was one of President Trump's and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s biggest financial backers in the 2024 election, gave two sprawling properties in Connecticut last year to the Children's Health Defense, an anti-vaccine group Mr. Kennedy founded. The donation, which has not been previously reported, shows how tightly intertwined Mr. Mellon has become with Mr. Kennedy and their shared work against vaccines. The adjacent parcels cover about 300 acres at the confluence of the Connecticut and 8 Mile rivers in Lyme. It features a pool, a tennis court, and several buildings, property records show. The properties were appraised this year at a total of $5.5 million. It is not clear what Children's Health Defense, which is based in New Jersey, plans to do with them. Mr. Mellon, 83, has talked with pride about building the estate. In a self-published autobiography in 2014, he wrote about his plans for the land. I will not make such a contribution to groups like the Nature Conservancy or Sierra Club because I have little confidence that they, unlike the state of Connecticut, will be around forever, Mr. Mellon wrote. The estate was sold for $0 in August, property records filed with the Lyme Town Clerk Show, and Mr. Mellon agreed to cover the costs of improvements and maintenance while retaining access to parts of the property, including a family cemetery. In a text message to the New York Times, Mr. Mellon, who cultivates an aura of distance and mystery, said the donation was none of its business and declined to comment. Children's Health Defense did not respond to requests for comment, nor did its president, Mary Holland. Mr. Kennedy, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, did not respond to a request for comment. He stepped down as chairman of Children's Health Defense in December 2024 before his confirmation hearings after taking a leave of absence to run for president. Know that it has been one of my greatest privileges and honors to lead this group over all these years, Mr. Kennedy wrote in a resignation letter to Ms. Holland and the organization's board. I'm confident that the group under your and the board's leadership will continue to do outstanding work defending the health and rights of our children. Mr. Mellon burst into the world of political fundraising in the Trump era. During the 2024 cycle, he gave $150 million to Mr. Trump's super PAC and $25 million to Mr. Kennedy's super PAC. Last October, during the government shutdown, Mr. Mellon was reported to be the anonymous donor who gave $130 million to the U.S. government to pay the salaries of the troops. Children's Health Defense has recently taken in between $15 and $23 million a year in revenue, according to tax filings. Mr. Kennedy joined the organization in 2015 when it was called the World Mercury Project. In 2018, the group rebranded and has aggressively disseminated vaccine misinformation, including unproven claims that vaccines cause autism. Mr. Kennedy's finances were closely tied to the organizations. In addition to receiving a salary, he was paid by a law firm that handled the work for Children's Health Defense. He has said he donated the proceeds of book sales to the organization. He and Mr. Mellon share a publisher, Skyhorse Publishing, whose founder, Tony Lyons, is on the board of Children's Health Defense. In 2024, an interview with The Times, Mr. Kennedy said Mr. Mellon had been a financial champion of Children's Health Defense since the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Kennedy said that Mr. Mellon seemed concerned less by vaccine than by government lockdowns and personal liberties. Mr. Kennedy said he had met Mr. Mellon in person once. It is not clear how much Mr. Mellon has given to the organization. In the blurb on the front cover of Mr. Mellon's autobiography, Mr. Kennedy called the billionaire a maverick entrepreneur, who embodies the most admirable qualities of what FDR called American industrial genius. The transaction in Lyme is laid out in a series of deeds on file at the clerk's office. In August, Mr. Mellon gave the two parcels 100-7 Joshua Town Road and 62 Joshua Lane to Children's Health Defense, the records show. Days later, Mr. Mellon signed an agreement for Clipper Properties, a limited liability company in Wyoming, where Mr. Mellon has a home, to maintain the two properties for 5 years and cover the cost of insurance. As part of this agreement, signed by Mr. Mellon and Ms. Holland, a Clipper representative would live in a brick house on one of the properties. The property records related to the Children's Health Defense transaction do not appear to refer to a signature architectural contribution that Mr. Mellon made to Lyme, an exact replica of a medieval Norwegian church he had built more than a decade ago on a corner of one of his plots. Inside the Ebola outbreak, we discussed the epidemic in the Dominican Republic of Congo. This article by Sam Sifton. The Ebola virus has stalked Congo since at least the mid-1970s, when a major outbreak on the banks of the Ebola River gave the disease its name. The latest eruption, which Congolese Health Ministry announced on May 15th, has already become the third largest on record. It's particularly dangerous strain of Ebola this time, with no cure and no vaccine. Declan Walsh, our chief Africa correspondent, recently visited an Ebola ward in Ituri province, the epicenter of the epidemic, where under-equipped health workers have been trying to treat multiple patients with little outside support. He spoke with Katrin Benold, host of the newsletter The World, about what he saw. Katrin, where exactly are you and what is it like? Declan, I'm in Bunia, the capital of Ituri province in Congo, and have been reporting in Mangwalu, a town 50 miles north of here, where the outbreak is believed to have started. Driving there told us quite a lot about the outbreak. There were soldiers and checkpoints all along the way, a product of the long history of ethnic violence in this area. It is also a gold mining area with thousands of migrant workers from other parts of Congo. All that makes this an ideal launch pad for the virus. How are locals coping? The doctors and health workers do heroic work, but they're completely swamped. The Ebola ward in Mangwalu was disturbingly unsecured, people wandering in and out, nobody wearing much protection. It was lacking in all forms of equipment, medicine, basic supplies, and it had almost no testing kits, which are crucial to reducing the spread of the disease. How bad is this outbreak compared to with past ones? It's already the third largest outbreak, and it's still early days. Congo has had many Ebola outbreaks, but a few factors make this one different. One is that it is being caused by a different species. The main Ebola virus is known as the Zaire virus, and there are now several vaccines for it. But this virus, the Bundibugyo virus, has no approved vaccine or treatment yet. The mortality rate can be as high as 50%. This outbreak was also discovered late. There was an enormous lag between the apparent start, possibly as early as March, and the first identified case on March 15th. We wrote last week that this outbreak was bad but unlikely to spread across the world. Does that remain true? Yes, according to experts, it's an extremely serious outbreak here. It has spread into at least 2 other Congolese provinces, into neighboring Uganda, and potentially into South Sudan. But for now, it has been largely contained within this region. That's no consolation, of course, to the people who live here and are really struggling. Fighting this outbreak is not just a matter of money and medicine. It is also about combating perceptions and customs that are inadvertently helping the virus to spread. Conspiracy theories have been circulating that health workers and foreign non-government organizations somehow conspired to either bring this virus to the area or use it to kill the population. I cannot tell you the number of conspiracy theories we've heard. But aren't people used to Ebola outbreaks by now? Well, this is a town that escaped the last outbreak, so locals don't have a common memory dealing with Ebola. From their perspective, there was this wave of mysterious deaths all through April into early May until Ebola was finally declared. When people get sick here, they often go first to a traditional healer. That means that by the time they go to the hospital, the illness is at an advanced stage, and they often die within days. People have come to associate the hospital with death, not survival. They see loved ones going in to be treated, and then they see coffins coming out. On top of that, one of the main vectors for transmission has been funerals. People here tend to embrace the dead as they say goodbye, but the body of an Ebola victim is extremely contagious, and so traditional funerals effectively become super spreader events. Again, I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but this is a longer article. That number to read the whole article, 716-821-5555. And again, a reminder, you are listening to a reading of articles and features from the front section of the New York Times on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. What Ireland and Germany can teach us about birthright citizenship. President Trump has argued the United States is stupid for granting citizenship at birth. Most countries don't do so, but that can create problems. This article is by Lydia DePillis, Megan Specia, and Tatiana Firsova. Miriam Saboyo came achingly close to feeling like she belonged in Ireland. She was born in Dublin on February 10th, 2005, just a few weeks after the country halted its long-standing practice of granting citizenship to all children born on Irish soil. Her parents emigrated to Ireland from Nigeria in 2001, and she is the youngest of 5 children. 2 of her older sisters were born in Ireland in 2002 and 2004. Because of the timing, they were automatically Irish citizen. For Ms. Sabayo, it would take years of filing paperwork and waiting for answers to finally obtain her citizenship at 18. I was born in Dublin. I never left Dublin, she said of growing up in the Irish capital, and described getting exceptional grades in Irish language and studies in school. It's like, oh, here's the new citizenship, where I'm like, I've been here since day one. Without a passport, she could not travel outside the country, even as classmates went on school trips. When her Irish naturalization was approved, she felt a mix of relief and anger. I feel like I was carrying a heavy weight that wasn't supposed to be mine, Ms. Saboyo said. Now she's a social worker caring for children seeking international protection. In the coming weeks, the U.S. Supreme Court will issue its decision in a landmark case through which the White House has sought to end the 157-year-old legal standard of birthright citizenship. When President Trump talks about this issue, he calls America stupid, in quotes, for automatically granting citizenship to U.S.-born children of immigrants. The policy does stand out for its permissiveness. Although many countries in Central and South America have similar laws, most nations require that at least one parent be a citizen for a child to qualify. But research has shown that more restrictive policies can diminish the potential of children who are born and raised in a country as non-citizens, and that loosening the policy can improve the prospects of the generations born with a benefit. For example, a study by an international team of researchers last year found that the children of immigrants to the United States excelled further past similarly aged children of citizens than did second-generation immigrants in other developed countries. Across the 12 nations studied, birthright citizenship was correlated with higher economic mobility for the children of immigrants. Of all the developed economies in the world, the U.S. is the most successful in integrating immigrants, and you might wonder why, said Catalina Amuende Dorantes, an economic professor from the University of California, Merced. Maybe that access to citizenship from very early on is important. The sins of the parents. It is difficult to tease out the effect of different immigration policies across countries because there are so many variables and few natural experiments that allow researchers to compare one set of people with another. Ireland's shift away from birthright citizenship provides such an example. For much of Ireland's history, anyone born there had a right to citizenship. The 1998 Good Friday Agreement, which forged peace in Northern Ireland, enshrined it in Ireland's constitution. That changed in 2005 after 79% of voters supported a referendum to remove the constitutional amendment on birthright citizenship. The vote came during a period when Ireland's economy was booming and the quality of life was improving, making the country an immigration destination rather than an exporter of people as it had been for centuries. Ireland also faced some pressure from the still young European Union since it was the only member country to offer birthright citizenship, and citizens of all EU countries were now entitled to live and work anywhere within the bloc. But the public debate largely centered on claims that birth tourism was leaving maternity hospitals overcrowded. In reality, most non Irish mothers giving birth were European nationals already entitled to residency, and hospital strains stemmed from an underfunding. One study found that immigrants who arrived in Ireland from 1999 to 2004 had more education and fewer children than those who came before or after. After the referendum, citizenship for anyone born in Ireland on or after January 1st, 2005 would depend on their parents' nationality and residence history. Even though the Constitution no longer protected automatic birthright citizenship, other generous provisions were introduced, explained Samantha Arnold, a senior manager with the immigration consultancy Fragaman. Children born in Ireland with at least one parent legally residing on the island for 3 out of the 4 years before their birth can still qualify for citizenship. Children born in Ireland and not entitled to citizenship of another country are also eligible, preventing them from becoming stateless. There are a lot of things to catch people, but of course, people are going to fall through the cracks, Ms. Arnold said, adding that those most at risk of not having access to citizenship are children of parents who did not have permission to live in the state. E. Boone Joseph, the special reporter for Ireland's National Action Plan Against Racism, recently produced a documentary about the young people born in Ireland to non Irish parents shortly after the referendum who have been left in limbo. It created a huge policy gap that is impacting young people, particularly in their education and mental health, Ms. Joseph said. The sins of the parents are visited on the children. If a parent is criminal or for whatever reason doesn't get citizenship, then the children are locked out of citizenship. Oluchi Okoli was born in Ireland on January 30th, 2005. She is still waiting for her Irish citizenship after completing naturalization papers in 2022. Her mother immigrated from South Africa and was living legally in the country when her daughter was born, but she had a chronic illness and stopped updating her residency papers. When her mother died in 2019, Ms. Okala realized that her mother's residency permit was out of date and that she had never applied for citizenship for her children. That kicked off a long process of proving that she was entitled to citizenship by naturalization through her mother's legal residency. In her third year of college, it's still dragging on. It takes a lot out of somebody, Ms. Okoli said. She believes the referendum to end birthright citizenship was driven by anti-immigrant sentiment, something she still felt. I still get asked, when did you come here? And I'm not going to let it affect me that much, she said. But why am I fighting to prove that I've been in this country my whole life? Again, I'm sorry I've chosen another long article. To hear it all, 716-821-5555. Late Night updates America on the lineup for its 250th birthday bash. Instead of music, the entertainment will be an 80-year-old man yelling about windmills, Jimmy Kimmel said after President Trump said he would headline a summer concert series. This article is by Trish Bendix. Welcome to Late Night Roundup, a rundown of the previous night's headlights that will let you sleep and lets us get paid to watch comedy. Oh, sorry, I think that's like an ad. Windmill Vanilli. Several artists in recent days pulled out of a summer concert series to celebrate the nation's 250th birthday after learning that the event had been part of an initiative planned by the Trump administration. By Monday, most of the lineup dropped out of the series, which is known as the Great American State Fair and is being planned by Freedom 250, a group that is organizing the administration's events for the birthday celebration. It went so quickly, it was as if they had been booked on a hantavirus cruise, Jimmy Kimmel said. Jimmy Kimmel also said, we're only 16 months into his second term now. Somehow this man is at war with Iran and Milli Vanilli. Fortunately, the president doesn't take this sort of thing personally, the late night host said, adding that Trump himself would be the headliner for the event. Again, a quote by Jimmy Kimmel. The only well known artists who did not back out were Flo Rida and Vanilla Ice, who now need to find another way to make $80 that night. Jimmy Kimmel also said, instead of music, the entertainment will be an 80-year-old man yelling about windmills. William Vanilli will be taking the stage. Jimmy Fallon said, man, you know Trump's unpopular when even the village people are like, we can't be part of this. Seth Rogen said, imagine how badly things have to be going that the real Milli Vanilli publicly rejected you, and it's not even the top 10 most embarrassing things to happen to you this week. As of now, this is Jimmy Fallon. Vanilla Ice is the only artist confirmed to perform. Yep, Vanilla Ice was like, I hate to divide my entire fan base, but I hope Frank and Larry can get over it. Jimmy Fallon also said the only people confirmed to be there are Trump and Vanilla Ice. I'm pretty sure that's how a creamsicle is made. And Jon Stewart said, see, everybody dropped out, but not Vanilla Ice. Vanilla Ice didn't drop out. He saw a problem and he solved it. The bit's worth watching. Former Daily Show correspondent Olivia Munn made a surprise appearance during Jon Stewart's monologue on Monday night. And there's a video, which I apologize. I don't know how to play that. And one last article, trying to end on a positive note. This article, Wise and Not So Wise Tips for Being Old. Here they are. Here's my personal list of actionable items to ensure that I end up in the thriving group or not in a facility at all. 1, never get sedentary. If you stop moving, you stop being able to move. Walk at least 30 minutes a day. 2, don't eat garbage. If you can't pronounce the ingredients, don't buy it. 3, sleep 8 to 9 hours every night. Defend this zealously and don't bring devices into the bedroom. 4, find a project, a hobby, or an activity. People need a reason to get out of bed in the morning and to feel useful by the end of the day. And 5, don't get isolated. Leave your home, make younger friends, and spend time with people. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 2nd issue of the front section of the New York Times. We read from the front section of the New York Times every Sunday at 1 p.m. Your reader has been Patrice. It has been my pleasure to read for you. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.